Coming up on Network Africa, at least 30 people killed following a church collapse in Amhara, northern Ethiopia. African leaders, ministers and energy officials at the Africa Energy Summit in South Africa say continent's energy transition must be just and equitable. And South African activist Mandela reportedly abducted by Israeli forces aboard Gaza-bound global flotilla. Welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Joke Rogers here in Lagos. We begin in Morocco, where at least 2 people have been killed in protests in the city of Agadir. The protests have been ongoing for 5 days. Local media reports say police opened fire on a group of demonstrators who allegedly tried to storm a police station. Protest organizers have repeated calls for the demonstrations to remain peaceful, while they criticize the police for what they describe as repressive security approaches. The protests are spreading to new areas, underscoring growing anger over what participants call rampant corruption and the neglect of schools and hospitals. They accuse the government of spending billions on World Cup preparations at the expense of other critical needs. Amnesty International has urged Moroccan authorities to address protesters' legitimate demands for social and economic rights. We're in Ethiopia now, where at least 30 people have been killed following the collapse of a scaffolding at the Menja Shenkora Areti Mariam Church in Amhara. Worshippers were attending an annual celebration of St. Mary inside the building, which is still under construction. Witnesses at the scene say many worshippers climbed the wooden scaffolding to view a ceiling mural when the structure collapsed. Local authorities warned that the death toll could rise, saying some people are still trapped under the rubble. Rescue operations are still underway. African leaders, ministers, and the energy community say they are ready to explore aggressively and to develop hydrocarbon amidst energy transition talks. The stakeholders who are currently attending the Africa Energy Summit in Cape Town, South Africa, say energy transition can only be just and equitable when the continent is allowed to use its resources to guarantee energy access for its population, thereby driving sustainable development. Various delegations from Nigeria say that the country is ready to do business.
The big message is Africa is open for business, and we've seen, interest from different parts of the world, and the event has grown, as you can see. But it shows that Africa is open for business, and there's countries like Nigeria who have made a case for making the countries the investment destinations that they want to be, and that case has been made very well. And there's excitement. And another good thing is that the world is now realizing that we need oil and gas more than ever before. I think that's a key takeaway. I think the whole narrative about moving too drastically the other way around and the green to renewables, I think people are starting to realize now, hey, we need to engage and have all sorts of energy on the table if we're going to end energy poverty.
Let's bring in our energy correspondent, Olu Phillips, who's in Cape Town, South Africa for us. Olu, great to see you today.
Great to see you. Okay, good to see everyone.
Right, so the narrative on the continent is changing from telling our own stories. We're here asking that African countries begin to harness resources for its own benefit. This is not a call to ignore investments from outside. So what is the theme really about?
The conversation is shifting, and I think it's important for everyone to know globally and within the continent that's taking a position that the West that has developed and that has industrialized and developed should decarbonize. They are the ones that should decarbonize. They're the ones that should reduce emissions. Africa as a continent contributes only 3% to global emissions and global warming. And so the simple narrative here coming from this conference is that the developed countries should decarbonize while Africa should industrialize. Now, what that means simply is that Africa is ready to use these resources to end energy poverty. And the target everyone has been given from this conference is that by 2030, most of the African countries, especially those that are resource rich, can begin to galvanize their resource in such a way. When I mean resource, I'm talking about oil and gas. Galvanize it in such a way and explore in such a way that it can now be used as a vehicle for sustainable development for their country and for the continent. I mean, if you have more than over half a million people who still don't have access to electricity, and if you look at numbers in terms of international community and how much we contribute to that, you see that Africa is really, really far from how much it has contributed in terms of global warming. So Africa wants to develop its energy resources. It wants to use it as a sustainable means of livelihood. It wants to use it to generate wealth, and it also wants to use it to grant access to energy for its people. Okay.
Right, and we do all know that power remains a huge challenge, especially for Western Africa. Are countries learning from each other about these pitfalls and pivotal moments that could help change that?
Let me tell you something, Joke. The truth is that, for instance, the federal government of Nigeria has declared that it wants to use gas as its energy source to get to where it wants to go to. We have seen in this conference Nigerians leading in that discourse. We saw a company like UTM company that is starting a project they call the floating LNG. Now, what that will do is that they are going to float a vessel where LNG will be on, and they will supply some domestic gas to their domestic gas obligation, which will now be used to fire turbines, fire industry, fire generating plants that will generate electricity, while still positioning itself, for instance, as a group to export LNG. So we're going to a season where it's not just a company like the Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas that will be responsible for our domestic gas supply needs. We're having companies that, okay, you know what? We're not going to wait for the infrastructures to be built. We're going to put this infrastructure on the vessel. We're going to sail it to where the gas resources is. We're going to drill. We're going to produce this gas, and we're going to make sure that this gas is produced to serve electricity purpose, to serve, and also for export, which will also again bring in revenue by way of LNG exports. Here, company reps are here, the NNPC is well represented, other companies are here, and Nigeria is actually putting the right step forward, and of course waiting for partnerships to come. As a matter of fact, we've seen countries like Senegal, Mozambique, Gabon, Congo, Ghana, Gambia, all of them saying, come on, Africa, it's time. And guess what? The Minister for Petroleum Resources, Oil, did say something. If we're looking for resources and you can't find it anywhere, there's somewhere to look in. You can look at the pension funds. You can look at the bonds. Africa can team up. Nigeria is looking to host the African Energy Bank. You can go there to get resources to fund some of these upstream operations. We've seen companies like the Renaissance in this conference pitching and speaking to the global community on what to do. They say they have added over 100,000 barrels of crude in the last 100 days of operation, and they are hoping to produce about 500,000. So the 3 million barrels ambition of the federal government, for instance, doesn't look like a pipe dream. And all of this, mind you, is production of oil and gas, where, for instance, if you drill oil, you find associated gas. If you drill for gas, you find gas. And all of this will be channeled into production, channeled into sustainable development, channeled into the wealth of the nation. And of course, the expertise are here. And the CDMB, that's the local content board, has also pitched that Africa has got the talent. Africa has got the right technology. Africa has also got the right people to do the job. And therefore, not sounding boastful, but sounding very assertive that it is ready to do business with the world.
Right. Thank you so much, Olu. Keep on covering that, and I'm sure we'll get in touch with you later on to give us updates on what's going on at that summit, especially investments being sought by the Nigerian delegation. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Shakir.
Still in South Africa, delegates at the W20 Gauteng Outreach Dialogue are calling for stronger measures to close the gender gap in financial inclusion, which they believe is vital to drive economic growth and resilience across the continent. The dialogue is a lead up to the W20 summit taking place later this month. Organizers say the meeting focuses on moving from promises to action to ensure women are not left behind in global policy making. Our South Africa correspondent Innocent Semosa reports.
The Outreach Dialogue forms part of many sides events leading up to the Y20 Summit to be held in October 2025. The dialogue brings together leading academic institutions, international organizations, and specialized initiatives focused on women economic empowerment across Africa.
So at the Africa Women Financial Inclusion Initiative, we've actually just partnered recently with the Gracia Michel Trust, and we have launched a program in South Africa called the New Faces, New Voices program. This program is going to be very inclusive. We are actually not working just in the big cities, but across all 9 provinces. And when we say 9 provinces, we are doing a balance. We're going to be we're doing financial dialogues with women both in towns as well as rural women.
She emphasized that women need to be confident, step forward, and actively seek out information.
The finances thing, we've heard about how many funding opportunities are there. But now what comes is that we saw that women are actually not having the barriers that they're facing. They're not confident. They're not coming forward with, that confidence to be able to say, let me go and be able to pitch. So to be investor ready when, let's say, they're going to look for that funding opportunity.
Meanwhile, Dr. Okido Wedi from Human Sciences Research Council outlined the major barriers that continues to prevent women across Africa from accessing financial services.
There are a number of barriers affecting women. So outside of a macro level, being policy and systemic level, that's our culture. And also internally, there's lack of confidence in what we can do. However, the IMF and several other organizations have shown that bringing women on board economically actually increases the GDP of a country, and particularly in the Southern African region.
Delegates here also took some time to wish Nigeria a happy Independence Day.
I want to say to all Nigerians, happy anniversary, happy Nigeria Day, and keep pushing. You are driving the economic, the social and political, aspect of Africa very well, and also you're a resilient nation. So continue being audacious and being powerful. And a special message to our college students: we love you and keep shining.
As the Y20 Summit approaches later this month, the Gauteng Outreach Dialogue has set the tone by calling for practical action on gender equality. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samos, Channels Television News.
Other news out of South Africa, activist Mandela, grandson of former President Nelson Mandela, has reportedly been abducted by Israeli forces. He was among several civilians aboard a vessel that was part of the global Sumud flotilla, which was sailing towards Gaza. Reports indicate that the flotilla came under attack from drones and water cannons before delegates were detained. Prior to the incident, Mandela had recorded this message. Take a listen.
I'm a citizen of the Republic of South Africa. If you are receiving this video, it means that we have been intercepted and have been abducted by the apartheid state of Israel. I call on you to request our government to exert pressure for my immediate release.
Elsewhere, 2 Kenyan human rights activists have also gone missing in Uganda after reportedly being abducted by armed men while attending opposition leader Bobi Wine's campaign event. Mr. Wine, whose real name is Robert Kyagulanyi, has strongly condemned the abduction of the 2 activists, Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyu, saying that the pair had been picked up mafia style at a petrol station and driven off to an unknown destination. Ugandan police spokesperson Kituma Rusoki says the two are not in their custody. Meanwhile, Kenya's Michael Muchiri claims he was not aware of the matter. Residents of the city of Uvira, South Kivu province of the Democratic Republic of Congo, have been reacting to news of the country's former leader, Joseph Kabila, being handed a death sentence. Some of them warn that politicizing the verdict is damaging the inclusive dialogue needed to resolve the country's long-running crisis. Some also say that now is not the right time to launch a trial against Mr. Kabila, as it risks plunging the country into a chronic security and political crisis. While there are still others who say the ruling shows the justice system is independent and the sentence may serve as a deterrent to those seeking to undermine security in the country's troubled east. The junta leader in Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traore, has hosted the opening ceremony for the 2025-2026 judicial year in Ouagadougou, aiming to restore public trust and strengthen the justice system within the Alliance of Sahel states. During the event, the country's Minister of Justice and Human Rights, Edaso Bayala, stressed the importance of restoring public confidence in the justice system, highlighting the progress in re-establishing judicial institutions in their original locations after security challenges forced many to relocate. On his part, Mali's Minister of Justice and Human Rights, Mamadou Kassoge, applauded growing regional ties within the Alliance of Sahel states and saying that justice within the framework of the alliance is getting stronger. The new judicial season is centered on the theme strengthening relations between the justice system and litigants, a guarantee of social cohesion, good governance, and development. Well, the UN General Assembly is over and leaders have returned home until next year, that is. But what gains were made at this special landmark global meeting? Our Foreign Affairs correspondent, Amarachi Ubani, takes a look at this.
That peace is naive.
This year's General Assembly at the United Nations was built to be an occasion for leaders to reflect on the journey so far, and realization that despite ideologies and beliefs, we are all better together. Going by the addresses made at the General Assembly Hall, the only coalitions that were made were of countries that formally recognized the Palestinian state and African leaders who called for a permanent seat at the Security Council, amidst the calls for reform at the UN.
Nigeria must have a permanent seat at the UN Security Council. This should take place. This should take place as part of a wider process of institutional reform.
Institutions rarely fail because they lack vision or ideals. More often, they drift into irrelevance when they do not adapt, when they hesitate to act, and when they lose legitimacy.
That call did not gain much traction at the Assembly, even though nearly every African leader who took to the podium made the call amidst highlighting other issues of global attention. Geopolitical analyst Onyekachi Adekoya says the UN cannot avoid the topic of a permanent seat for Africa much longer.
Let's get the seat for Africa, but let's find a mechanism to rotate among regional powers in Africa so that Africa gets the seat, but we don't lose focus.
What did, however, gain traction was the war in Gaza and the calls for the recognition of a Palestinian state. One remarkable event was the walkout by diplomats when the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took to the podium for his speech. He rejected outright the idea of a Palestinian statehood.
Giving the Palestinians a state 1 mile from Jerusalem after October 7th is like giving Al-Qaeda a state 1 mile from New York City after September 11th.
Stories such as US President Donald Trump being stuck in an escalator inside the UN building, his teleprompter failing at the point when he was about to give his speech, and him bashing the UN for not acknowledging his peace efforts and ending 7 wars made the headlines. On the sidelines of the Assembly, the UK, France and Germany announced that they would be reinstating sanction resolutions against Iran. Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, pledged reprisal. So what are the tangible outcomes of the hunger? The answer is relative, depending on who is asked. Measurable progress can be monitored in upcoming UN Security Council meetings and resolutions. Amarachi Ubani, Channel Television News.
Nigeria's Independence Day was on October 1st, and those celebrations were kind of muted here in the country. In the diaspora, people have had the time to reflect on the country's progress. In the United Arab Emirates, our correspondent Mayowa Adegoke spoke with some Nigerians about their expectations.
As Nigeria marks its 65th Independence Day, the celebrations extend far beyond its borders. Here in the United Arab Emirates, Nigerians reflect on the nation's journey, its achievements, challenges, and hope for its future. Prince Franklin Omene has been living in the UAE for over 30 years and has established himself across multiple business channels, including venture capitalism, real estate, and commodities trade.
Once upon a time, we were the food basket for the entire continent. We used to have ground-up pyramids. What happened to ground-up pyramids today? We're talking about food security. A lot of shift has gone to oil and gas, but we do have a lot to offer more than oil and gas. We are looked as the pride of Africa, you could say. And leaders in the past, like Nelson Mandela has always said, once Nigeria gets it right, the black race gets it right, not just Africa. Today, we celebrate 65 years. We empower, we encourage our leaders to be champions of tomorrow. Yes, our youths, we look at them as our leaders of tomorrow, but we want to start with our current leaders. Let's lead by example. We have what it takes. UAE has done it in a very short time. We can do it. We can do it. We're not the underdogs. We're better than they say we are, and I know we can do it. Together, we can.
Helen Onodikpe is a firm believer in Nigeria, which is why she hosts an Independence Day event in Dubai every year to promote unity.
Outside the country, maybe yes, we have that oneness because we are at that point everybody is far from home, and you have no option than to relate with your brother and your sisters that you're able to relate with in outside the country. But back home, I would say there's still some friction there that we really still need to come together as one. Like they used to say, united we stand, divided we fall. So that part of oneness, I still see it a bit shaky while back home, but outside the country, of course, because you have no option at that point, you just have to find a way to relate one way or the other.
It's a mixed bag of emotions for citizen Oluwatosin, a blogger who raises the important topic of government representation.
It's been very difficult for Nigerians. When people have problems, we don't even know who to go to, who to contact, and it's just a mixed feeling being a Nigerian, but we still have to celebrate ourselves. It's not easy to be celebrating 65 years of independence. So we are celebrating Nigeria. We are celebrating ourselves as Nigerians. We are celebrating our strength, our resilience, our courage to face difficulties, our courage to shine even in time of trouble. That is what we are celebrating.
Across town in Abu Dhabi, Esther Olaiwola, an educational consultant and founder of the Niger Hub platform, shares her concerns on raising future generations of Nigerians in diaspora.
My message to other Nigerians in diaspora is let us be, that generation that we're trying to change the narrative that, okay, Nigeria is not just known for some negative things, but we are also, there's a lot of positivity to Nigeria and what it means to be Nigerian.
From the UAE, the voices of Nigerians speak with honesty about challenges of the past and hopes of the future. But through every reflection lies a common thread of resilience, unity, and the strong belief that Nigeria's best days are indeed ahead. From Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, Maya Wadegoke for Channels Television News.
And as we close, did you know that the Gambia is the smallest country in mainland Africa, surrounded by Senegal? It occupies a narrow strip of land that surrounds the Gambia River. The land itself is flat and is dominated by the river, which is navigable throughout the length of the country. Well, now you know. That's Network Africa today. Thank you for watching. I'm Joke Rogers.